third of this week's 5 debuts is by a new duo, Danny Wilde and Phil Solemn. But they don't call their duo Danny and Phil or Wilde and Solemn. Instead, they call themselves the Rembrandts. They're hoping for big things from their very first Top 40 masterwork, a song called Just the Way It Is, Baby.
Some albums take months, even years to make. There's songwriting, the pre-production, the recording, the mixing, and then the sequencing. What order should the songs go on the album? Some artists agonize for months over that one, and that makes the Rembrandts one big exception. Danny Wilde and his partner Phil Solemn did everything differently. They wrote and recorded at the same time. Now, that's not too unusual, but they did it in Danny's little home studio. And once the songs were laid down, that was it.
The reason we left them in the same order is because we had a song tape that as soon as we would finish a song, we'd put it on tape. So, Just the Way It Is, Baby was the first song we wrote. It was the first one on the tape. And then Save Me was the second song, and so on and so forth. And then it came time to sequence the album. Well, by this time, we'd been so used to listening to this one tape that every other sequence we'd try just didn't sound right. So we just said, well, let's just leave it this way. And everyone goes, oh, this sequence is great. So now the press people love that because they can say, this is actually the chronological order that these songs were written in.
And once again, that's Just the Way It Is, Baby. The first song they wrote and recorded became the first song on their album, the first single, and their first hit. The Rembrandts climb on to number 33 with Just the Way It Is, Baby. It's one of 12 hits by groups on AT40.
Hi, I'm Danny Wilde from the Rembrandts. There are more Billboard hits to come as American Top 40 continues.
Casey's Top 40.
I'm Casey Kasem on a special edition of Casey's Top 40. What we're doing today is counting down the 100 biggest hits of 1991. And rolling in at number 88 is the first Top 40 hit for a two-man act that named themselves after a 17th century Dutch painter. The one who painted what are today the highest priced paintings in the world.
That's just the way it is, baby.
Danny Wilde, born in the wilds of Maine. Phil Solemn's from Minneapolis, but they met in California and took the name of a famous artist from Holland. They're the Rembrandts, edging up a notch to 16 with Just the Way It Is, Baby. I'm Casey Kasem, counting down on Casey's Top 40.
Number 36.
Moving up 3 notches are the Rembrandts, a duo whose new album has a title that makes you think it doesn't have a title. You see, it's titled Untitled. From that Untitled CD, here's Johnny, Have You Seen Her?
Johnny, have you seen her? Casey's Top 40.
I'm Casey Kasem, and that means we're up to the number 1 song in the USA on Casey's Top 40. This week's number 1 is by a duo who says one of their most embarrassing moments happened at a nightclub in Palm Beach, Florida, a club that was hosting a bikini and swimsuit contest called The Ultimate Fantasy. It was a night Phil Solemn and Danny Wilde say was far from the ultimate fantasy. They were hired to play music while hundreds of beachgoers arrived to witness some of the skimpiest swimwear in Florida, and they say their show was doomed from the start. According to Phil Solemn, nobody in the audience paid any attention to them. Quote, people had the choice between us and the bikini contest, and I think they like human flesh a little bit better than us, unquote. Well, hoping to attract some attention, Phil came up with an idea. The stage he and Danny were playing on had a long ramp in front of it, which resembled the walkways many fashion models use in fashion shows. Phil figured that if he got out on that runway and started rocking and rolling and jumping around with his guitar, he might be able to get some attention. There was a large speaker in between Phil and the runway, and he decided that he could add a nice dramatic flair by jumping over the monitor on his way to that ramp. Phil and Danny started playing, and right in the middle of the song, Phil dramatically took a running leap over the large speaker. He expected to land on the ramp, but what he didn't know was that there was a drop of about 1 foot between the stage and the ramp, and when Phil landed, he lost balance, the heel of his boot broke off, and he stumbled around looking anything but dramatic. Phil was totally embarrassed, and for the rest of the show, he had to stand stationary behind his microphone, nursing a very sore foot and feeling extremely foolish. These days, Phil's feeling anything but foolish, because he and his partner, Danny Wilde, have a huge hit on their hands. The song that for the 5th week in a row is the biggest hit in the land. The number 1 song in the USA on Casey's Top 40 is I'll Be There For You by the Rembrandts.
Casey's biggest hit.
A year ago this week, one of the biggest hits in the USA was by the Rembrandts, the theme song for a super successful TV sitcom that proves the old adage, imitation is the most sincere form of flattery. It's a song that Danny Wilde and Phil Solemn of the Rembrandts say they have a love-hate relationship with. After 5 years of trying to make it big with their music, they finally scored. But they have to share credit for that song's success with a sitcom that's so influential, it's inspired more than a few shows about urban buddies who spend a lot of time drinking cappuccino and joking about their lives. Sitcoms like Caroline in the City and The Single Guy. Shows that owe their existence to the smash sitcom called Friends. And it's Friends that also gave us one of the biggest hits in the USA a year ago this week. Here are the Rembrandts with I'll Be There For You.
No one told you life was gonna be this way.
Casey's biggest hits.
2 years ago this week, one of the biggest hits in the USA was I'll Be There For You, a TV theme song that wasn't supposed to be a single. And then radio stations started getting calls begging to hear it. The duo called the Rembrandts had been hired to record some music for a new sitcom called Friends. They thought it was just a one-shot job that they'd do, and that would be it. And for a while, that's how it was. But then the show started catching on, and catching on big. It became a top 10 show, and fans started calling radio stations asking if they could play the theme from the show. One station took the music from the show and re-edited it into a single of sorts. The demand was so great that the Rembrandts went back into the studio and recorded a full-length version of it. And that song became one of the biggest hits in the USA 2 years ago this week. Here are the Rembrandts with their hit from Friends, I'll Be There For You.
I'll be there for you when the rain starts to pour. I'll be there for you like I've been there before. I'll be there for you 'cause you're there for me too.
Casey's